Okay. If you need to say anything, just go ahead and pop it in the chat or unmute yourself. We should all be good to go. My video should stay up. I don't have anything, any props that I have planned use for today. But of course, if you have, a blanket around for your knees, if we go on to our knees and maybe something to sit on, if you use a block, grab a block for the usual things there. I was been reading Dare to Lead again. And I'm excited. I actually talked my team into reading another Brene Brown book as our next book club thing. So I just want to keep soaking in all of this very important, relevant encouragement that she has for dealing with really rough situations, like existing, in this place of trying to prevent another Black person from dying at the hands of a system that's just not seeing it. And it's like, how do we see each other in these really divisive places? And when I read just this little bit that was on trust. Once we're in a lockdown, we really can't hear or process anything that's being said because we've been hijacked by the limbic system and we are in emotional survival mode. I don't know if I only speak for myself, but I have been in emotional survival mode for about 13 weeks straight, and it's really starting to wear on me. We all want to believe that we are trustworthy, even though, ironically, many of us struggle to trust others. Most people believe they're completely trustworthy, yet they only trust a handful of their colleagues. And the math just doesn't work because believing we're trustworthy and being perceived as trustworthy by others are two different things. Charles Feltman's definitions of trust and distrust are completely aligned with how the research talks about trust. In his book, The Thin Book of Trust, Feltman defines trust as choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. Choosing to risk making something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. He describes distrust as deciding that what is important to me is not safe with this person in this situation or any situation. And I feel like that speaks so clearly to what love is. Love between two human beings, two people, very much requires that we admit and we allow something that is valuable to us, our hearts, our emotions, our limbic crazy response system to very difficult stimulus, to be able to allow that to be vulnerable to another person. And if we don't come at any interaction with other people with trust and with love, then we are coming at them from behind a wall, and we're keeping them from behind a wall. And we are unable to find that level of connection in which we can truly begin to build up a better relationship, whether that's talking about really difficult social political issues, trying to decide how you work out your specific neighbor situation, race issues, etc. All of these things, when we don't come at it with that love and that trust, then we've got this divide, and it's only going to wear us down over time. And that stuff is super, super hard, especially thinking of somebody whom you are pretty darn sure, if not have evidence, that they disagree vehemently with something that you find important. In this book, Dare to Lead, Brene talks a lot about the marble jar, where it doesn't have to always be all or nothing, but something that kind of builds up over time is that you have a jar full of marbles, and whenever people do things that inspire more trust and more security in us, then we find that jar filling with marbles from them. And when we have instances that are questionable, some of the marbles get taken away, and it's not necessarily that you just dump and throw out the whole jar and all of the marbles. But can we find these little ways that feel a little bit more comfortable to start building the building blocks of trust and connection over time? Let's start with face brushing. Take your index finger and your thumb together in the little squishy spot. We'll take that into the center of the forehead and brush outwards towards your temples a few times. And then from the sides of your nose out to your temples, along your cheekbones. From your temples down to your chin, along your jawline. And from the sides of your nose down to the chin, along your laugh lines. Taking your fingertips underneath and behind your ears and massaging, working upwards to the bony spots and feeling that extend and lift your spine. And even thinking how this can be a very gentle, continuous extension. You don't just grab the head, lift it up, and get the longest back possible. It's just this gentle unwinding. Space starts to find its way in. Start to feel a little bit looser and longer and lifted as you go. Allowing the change to happen. And trying to keep that lift going on your own. Rest your hands down into your lap. Take a big roll of your shoulders up and back to leave your heart a bit more open. And just take a few breaths. Perhaps setting an intention of being willing to trust your body today. To be open and communicate with this body, to give it what it needs during this practice. To be willing to explore and also to back off when you need it. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Big breath out through your mouth. Again, like that. For 3 ohms. You should just gently relax your right ear over towards your right shoulder. Give a moment to let your jaw soften and slowly roll the chin downwards towards your chest, taking your time to lift your head back up. And then releasing your left ear over towards your left shoulder. Let the jaw soften, the front of your throat soften to try to keep the head on the spine, and then let that head and spine roll forward, gently coming towards the chest and taking your own time to lift your head back up. If you've got your legs wound up, then go ahead and unwind them. I'm going to bring the legs open to some extent here, so it can be legs a little bit wider if that rotation isn't working in your hips today, or bringing your feet in close, and then starting to roll around on your hips. That actually feels better to me, not on the pillow, but feel free to still sit up on something. You just want to really let yourself roll all the way around like you're stirring the spine. Sometimes it feels really good to let the spine undulate, and I don't know, that today and yesterday that just wasn't feeling right to me, so I'm not going to do it, but you go ahead and do it if that feels good to you. And then take this rolling around the other way, and kind of massaging the pelvis, loosening up around the hips. And then when you feel like you've probably done an even amount of rolls in both directions, come into the center. If your legs are extended out, you're just going to place your left hand on your left thigh. If your knees are open, place the hand on the inside of your thigh, taking the right hand behind you, and then you're going to twist away from the leg. If your legs are extended like so, you'll just push down and lift up. If your thighs are open, maybe you push that thigh open just a little bit. Take another breath in and another breath out. And then twist the other way. So you'll be pressing down with your right hand, but it may not be rotating the leg. If your leg is straighter and your knee is up, it won't be rotating. But if it is, getting a little bit more inner thigh space. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. And then releasing that and coming forward onto your belly. We'll take a half frog pose. So you'll lay down, make a pillow for your head with your hands. Just take one of your legs and bring your knee out to your side. So the sole of the foot, or the big toe edge of the foot, is down. And then rest in a way where your head is just supported by your hands. And to get a little bit more release in your lower back, think about the top of this thigh bone of that leg that you've got out. You're going to drop it down to the bottom of your hip socket, and that will also work this inner hip space a little bit more. Just one more deep breath in and deep breath out. And then that leg that you've got tucked up, you're just going to roll onto the other side. So that leg I had open, that was my right leg. I'm going to bring it onto the inside of my thigh. I'm laying propped up on my hand, mostly because I can't extend my arm, but if you wanted to do that, it would just be maybe a little bit harder to balance. Try to open the fronts of your hips here. Maybe you gently open that thigh. There's a little bit of balance play going on right now. And of course, your foot doesn't have to be that high. And it can even be on the knee because you're not really putting any pressure on the knee at this point. Ooh, I'm really falling back there. Okay. Oh man, my breath. Let's see if we can go one more round of breath. And then releasing this leg, go ahead and roll over onto your belly. And you'll take the other leg up by your hip. I'm just going to scooch because I'll roll away from you if I don't. So you've got your knee in line with your hip. The big toe edge of the foot is on the floor. And you don't have the foot in close to your leg. It's extending down at that 90-degree angle. And rest the thigh bone to the bottom of your hip socket. You get that little release and extra space in the lower back. Stay for 2 more breaths. Big breath out. And then start to roll over onto your side, taking this leg up. So you've still got that open inner thigh space. The knee is up. Maybe you use your hand to press it back. If you're finding your balance to be very difficult, if you place your hand down instead of on your leg, then you have just a little bit of extra help there. Ooh, I'm piking. I want to try not to pike. I want to try to be a long line because I might as well play with the balance. I'm already safe on the floor. That's funny, we even mistrust ourselves here where not much could go wrong. It's good to practice these things, these skills. Just trusting our bodies, breathing in, breathing out. And rolling over onto your belly. Bring your hands in by your low ribs. Wiggle your shoulders around a few times. And then press down into the tops of your feet. Lift your heart up and forward, little cobra pose. Pause here. Don't be in the fullest cobra. Find a cobra where you can stay for just a moment and try to relax the muscles on the sides of your neck that don't seem to trust that you can hold yourself up with your spine instead, with your strong back. Take one more breath in and soften down. Go ahead and rest your cheek. Just pick one, maybe wiggle your hips a little bit side to side. And we'll go up into one more cobra. Again, maybe not your biggest, it doesn't have to be a huge shape. See if you can come up
with slightly softer muscles at the sides of your neck. Trying to use a long spine and strong belly to lift up. Go ahead and draw the elbows back and send the heart forward. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. And then start to push yourself up. See if you can lift the belly. Really push yourself up. And then widen your knees, bring your toes towards each other and sit back towards child's pose. And you can be in puppy dog pose if that feels better. If being on your knees is no good, then just lay flat down on your belly again. Take 2 more deep breaths, feeling the breath move in the back body, expanding your ribs. Start to bring yourself up onto your hands and knees. If being on your knees is not working for you, you can just kind of sit down and do this sort of motion again. So what we're going to do from the hands and knees is take your right foot out to the side. See, I've got it really open. My foot's pretty close to my hand. Yours doesn't have to be. Find just some place that feels good. And then you're going to start to stir the hips around again. You could be on fingertips. Make your arms a little bit longer. If you've got blocks or anything to put underneath your hands, you could do that. Moving in the other direction. Slowly eroding the sticky spaces. Gently finding more space in the hips. When you feel like you are probably a little bit more open, you'll start to stay there. Bring your foot a little bit closer to you. Turn your knee and your toe out. Take your left hand a little bit forward, and then let your hips lean forward, taking your right hand up to your right thigh. Maybe you push down in that hand to let your heart open a little bit more. If your gaze looks up, it looks very dramatic. Not that how it looks is ever the point, but sometimes it's fun. Take a big breath in. Big breath out. And start to pull your hips back. Walk yourself back, bringing that right leg back. And then taking your left foot out and forwards. It's really wide here. If you're on your mat the way you're supposed to be, then it might be quite off of your mat. It's maybe some finagling of where the foot goes until you find a place where it feels interesting but not wrong. I think there's that, oh, that's not where that goes. Feeling, don't have that. Find a good place where you can roll around in your hips a little bit. And start to roll the other way. And once you have made rolls around in what seems like an even number of times in both directions, you'll start to come into the center. Bring the foot in a little bit. Turn the knee and the toe out as much as you're able to, and then take your right hand further forward, might be on fingertips, and you'll take your left hand onto your left thigh. And don't just twist back in your hips. Let the hips go forward and let the shoulder roll back. And I'm pushing down this bottom hand. You can see I've got all of this space in my front shoulder. One more breath in. One more breath out. And starting to come back to the center. Bring your hands in, pull your hips back, pull your leg back. And then you're going to swing your legs out in front of you. Just take your palms and place them on your knees. Take a little bit of just the skin moving. No pressure, just stimulating the tissues, making sure we repair that tender joint. And then lift your toes. So you can feel these leg muscles engaging. Since you've already got your hands there, you might even feel those little muscles right up above the knees start to fire up when you make those legs as straight as you can. And then take your fingertips down by your sides. Lift up from behind your ears to get a strong back. Feel your belly connecting towards the spine, not crunching or smashing, but making that connection. Maybe starting to build a little bit of heat in the legs. Noticing if that heat is trying to build up in those muscles on the sides of your neck where we hold a lot of tension. Try to let that go. And the eyebrows go, and instead find a lift of your head, lift of the toes. Steady breath. We'll take 2 more breaths. If you want it to be a little bit more intense, lift your arms. If you don't want it intense, don't lift your arms. 1 more deep breath in. Deep breath out. And then relax your legs. And then take your hands, just massage them around each other. Make some circles around in your wrists. Switch the cross of your hands. Massage them around each other. Try to switch hands a couple of times. It's interesting like this, like you just know you're gonna mess up at some point, and you can still just be like, oh, it's okay. I trust that it's gonna be fine, even if I do have a little screw up with this weird hand thing. And then go ahead and let that go. We're gonna come into downward facing dog. If you're not down dogging today, you're gonna meet standing. Take your time getting there. You can fold if you want to. No worries about it. Spread those hands out, curl those toes under, and press yourself up and back. Try to relax your head. All of the usual things, we still try to relax the heels, lift the hips, press from the outside of the arms. But today, can you let letting your head go be your primary focus? Where can you find softness around the head and neck? Take a big breath in and a big breath out. And then we'll come up to standing just nice and slow. Bring your hands towards your feet and your feet to your hands. Take your time coming up to standing centered on your mat. Bring your feet in so that your big toes touch. Your hands to your hips, and push your hips back, coming into chair pose. When you have that chair pose, lift up your toes. Feel your hips go back a little bit further, and then put your toes back down. Maybe you lift your toes back up and see if you can push your hips back a little bit further and set your toes down, and then reach your arms out. See if you can get your hips any further from your hands, and you can let your toes lift up a little bit perhaps. 1 more breath in, breathing out, standing up, straightening the legs, reaching up and opening up the belly, and then bringing your hands down to your heart. Bring your feet wider this time, so you've got them a little bit wider than hip width apart. And we'll come into this really wide chair stance, so you'll push your hips back. Maybe you reach your arms out. If that's tense in your back, then leave your hands at your heart or your hips. So once you're all the way back here, can you lift your toes and set the toes down? Are you still drawing the basket of the belly up towards your spine? We make the hips and the hands a little bit further apart. Is the breath still moving? Exhale, straighten the legs, lift all the way up. And then release the arms down. Bring your feet back a little bit more in line about that hip width space. Take your hands, interlace your fingers, bring them behind your back, and then take them to the left side of your waist, dropping your elbows down and back. And then drop your nose down towards your fingers. Notice if you're creating a back bend. And instead try to lift the fronts of the hips just to keep that general control and connectedness in the belly. Last exhale. Gently bringing the head back to the center, and then taking the this other side with your hands. Elbows are back, fronts of the hips are lifted, and the head relaxes downwards. Notice where you're standing on your feet. Can you use the whole foot? both feet. Last exhale. And starting to take your gaze back up, releasing your hands, bringing them to the center of your heart. If it feels comfortable, close your eyes. If you feel like your balance is not super steady today and you want to be just a little bit closer to something you could hold on to, if you want to just know that it's there in case, you might move there. We're going to take a little bit of a standing balance weight change. So with your eyes closed, see if you can start there and just have 2 feet on the floor. And once you feel more familiar and more steady, just noticing how your body is resting in space, that you have even weight, that your spine is lifted and your belly is gently drawn in, that your breath is still steady. You might start to shift your weight from foot to foot and try to stay lifted through the center as you do that. So sometimes we can shift and let the hips slide over, but you're instead just lifting up above the foot you're shifting to, and then you might shift and lift a foot. Maybe you just lift your heels so you have less of your foot on the ground. And then notice if your breath is still fluid. And next time you take one foot up, you might take it up and see if you can stay there for another full round of breath. And it's okay if your toe grazes the ground. And we'll switch to the other side and stay for a full round of breath. And see if you can stay for 2 rounds of breath. Notice if your shoulders are trying to hold you up. And switch to the other side. See if you can stay for 2 full breaths in and out. Maybe getting a little bit longer as you inhale. Slowing down the release of your foot. And we'll take 3 rounds of breath. You can even graze your toe on the ground if that helps you to be a little bit more stable. Make sure you're still using these low abs to keep you lifted. I'm pretty sure this is the 3rd breath. And then exhale, set it down. Find that center lifted space, move to the other side. 3 breaths. If your eyes are not still closed, that's okay. If they are still closed, that's a whole lot of trust in your capacity to balance and be able to catch yourself. That's awesome either way. Just acknowledging where you're at. Probably that's 3 breaths, set your foot down. Wiggle things out a little bit. Take a big inhale, lift your arms up, and then fold forward. When you get down into that fold, let your knees bend as much as you need. Go ahead and give your hips a little bop around. Maybe relax your neck. Give yourself some little movements to find softness there. And then bend a little bit more into your right leg. So your left leg is a little bit less bent. And then take your left arm open so that you have a stretch on this outside of the left hip. Kind of pop the hip out a little bit, getting a little bit more sassy and stretchy there. And then resting down into the center. Switching sides, so now your right leg is more straight, your left leg is more bent, and it's okay if both are a little bit bent. Opening up that right shoulder, opening up the outside of that right hip, breathing in, breathing out, and then taking both hands down, letting your head relax. Walk the hands up the body, coming back to standing. And then open the legs out, as wide as you can get them, taking your right toes over to the right, your left toes in slightly, and then rest into that front leg. We're going to do a little bit of core engagement here. This is going to take a little bit of oblique strength. We're going to pause, reaching out over the right leg. This can also be very intense in the hips. So if that's very intense in the hips to go out further, you're going to come up a little bit and just reach the arm out. So this will be less intense in the hips, a little bit more for the abdominals. If you want to get a little bit more intense in both, you're reaching out here. Hopefully you're still breathing. Exhale. Go ahead and take that elbow down, but not soft in the elbow, strong in the elbow to keep the shoulder open.
Take your left arm up and over. And as you reach out from the shoulder blade out to your fingertips, push into your back foot to get more opening in that hip as well. Be sure that your hips aren't gliding behind you, that they're reaching down towards your back foot. Breathing in, breathing out. Draw your belly in, lift yourself back up to warrior two. And then straighten your front leg. Bring your hands to your hips, tilt the hips, and give a little stretch out with your hands at your hips. So just this little tilt. So starting to loosen this up. What will often happen here is we're going to start to lift up the big toe mound. See if you can push the whole foot down. So all 5 of those right toes are pressing down. And then, again, the more you're tilted over, the more intense this is going to be in the hips. If it's too much for your hips today, then you're going to lift your torso up and instead just reach your arm out. So there's this stretch to work your abdominals, or there's this tilt and stretch, which is a little bit more spicy. Are you still standing with both feet? Exhale, hand comes down. Don't worry about going down into your fullest expression. We've been here for a while, so it's going to start to get spicy anyway. Let's take the extended triangle. So you're going to reach your arm out and over your nose. Push into the back foot. Big breath out. Draw your belly in. Lift yourself all the way back up. And then start to switch your feet over towards the other side. So the left toes all the way over, the right toes turned in slightly. That, you know what I mean. And as you bend into your left leg, it's aligned with the foot. So there's a little reach out, and it's up for tenderer hips, or it's out. I'm avoiding my wall. If you're interested in seeking a little bit more challenge today, and it's fine wherever you're at today. Maybe you're usually a little bit spicier. You're just feeling a little soft, or something's a little off. Just trust that, leave it alone. One more breath in. Elbow down. Arm up and over. Letting the back of the shoulder blade reach those fingertips out, and the back foot pushes down to open up that full side body line. One more deep breath in. Deep breath out. And then starting to come up. Draw the belly in to stand up. And then straighten the front leg. Bring your hands to your hips. Just come into that tilt, that very first point before we start to go into triangle pose, just to give the hips a little bit of time to loosen up in that position, since we'll have to have some pliability in order to get that big ab stretch and strengthen. It's a little strong, but it's also stretchy, so it could be stretchy here, or it could be stretchy out there. Should feel the belly and not the low back in this, as usual. Breathing in. Breathing out. Take your hand down somewhere with your easier range of motion in triangle. And then the other arm comes up and over. So you can take the classic triangle with the arm up. But if you have this side body stretch, you can get a little bit extra juiciness. Push into the big toe mounds on both feet. Exhale. Draw your belly in. Come all the way up. And bring all 10 toes to face forward. We're going to take the hands down into a forward fold. I'm going to take a gentle twist, so leaving your left hand down, take your right hand into the small of your back. I'm trying to leave the back sort of flat. Go ahead and roll your shoulder open. Twisting out here, softening the belly. Breathing out. And then unwinding the twist, taking your right hand down, and then taking your left hand up into the small of your back, that flat space, feeling the shoulder roll open. Trying to keep those hips mostly steady.
Breathing in, breathing out. And then taking both hands down, little bend in the knees. Feel your feet supporting you so you can push into the feet to come back up. And then turn your heels in so your knees and toes are out. Come into a little Buddha squat, a little Gata squat. Not your deepest one. Just going to take one thigh down. You can take this other arm up and over. Quick visit. Go ahead and come to the other side. Take the other hand down. Take the other arm up and over. Come up. One exhale, sit a little bit lower. And then inhale, stand it up. I'm going to bring your feet in much closer. And then take your left foot back. Excellent. And having your hands at your hips is a little bit more stable. Try to lift the fronts of your hips so you're getting a stretch into this front thigh. I have the back heel up. You can have it down in a warrior stance. You're going to be more stable there. So decide which you prefer or which is better for your foot right now. And if you want to play around a little bit more with trusting yourself and your balance, you might just close your eyes. I think even closing one eye is harder here. Notice where your breath went. And then look forward. See if you can step the back foot up. Switch sides. It doesn't need to be a really big stance. You could be like here. Or you could be really far back, but you could be like here. This is still enough to stretch the front of that hip. Still a challenge to your balance, especially if you were to maybe just soften your eyes. You don't have to close them all the way. Start to open your eyes and bring both feet forward. And fancy transition, we're just going to come down to a seat. Go ahead and bring yourself down onto the floor. Open your legs out wide. Let your toes turn up. Take your hands behind you. Let the heart lead upwards and forwards. I'm going to take a little twist over so that you can reach the right hand out towards your toes. See if you can keep the heart turned upwards as you take the left arm up and over. And when the left arm goes up and over, sometimes the left hip goes up and over. So can you rest that left hip down? Breathing in. Breathing out. And then cross that left hand down. So you might hold on to the outside of your leg here to kind of curl yourself more into a twist over that leg. So you're really rotating down towards that thigh. If this whole grabbing and pulling thing doesn't serve you, just leave your hand down. Especially if you're able to grab the foot, it really reaches you in and you could have like a bent leg and grab for your foot. Ooh, this is really nice for the base of that hamstring. So if you wanted to bend in and see if you can reach or here. Exhaling. And taking yourself back to the center. Take your hands back behind you. To observe any differences in your hips. Keeping your chest lifted as you reach your left arm over and then your right arm extends up. So I've got a little turn of my heart upwards. So I'm reaching that right hip down. Breathing in. Breathing out. And then starting to turn downwards towards that leg. So sometimes having the leg straight is not kind to the low back. So if you're bending into the leg to get a little bit more feeling in that leg or a little bit more softness into your back, that's a good adjustment to make the shape fit your body rather than trying to make your body contort into a specific shape. Breathing in. Breathing out. And start to come up to the middle.
If you want to walk your hands forward into a fold, you're welcome to do that. If you'd like to just keep the hands back behind you and work on a steady breath and a long lifted spine, we'll stay here 3 more breaths. And as you're ready, if you're forward, starting to lift yourself up. And then bringing the legs in a little bit closer. I'm not quite ready for Shavasana yet, a few more things, but if you want to have whatever you might need for Shavasana nearby, we'll come down onto our backs and meet their soles of the feet down. Maybe let the arms come down. Get a little wiggle of your shoulders underneath your back. Maybe rocking a little bit from hip to hip. Give your toes a little wiggle around. Try to spread them out and plant them down. Coming up in the bridge pose. Take a little warm up one. Push into your feet, lift your hips, roll the shoulders underneath the back. You can hold onto your mat or your hips or hold hands below your back. Try to find that alignment of your knees going forward, your inner thighs drawing in. And then relax the shoulders and releasing your hips down. And then we're going to go back up into bridge pose, but before you do that, see if you can lift your heels up. We won't be here long. Just push up on your toes. Might wiggle your shoulders in. I know, just one more breath. Maybe you lower your heels and then your hips. Let your knees fall against each other. Rest for a moment. Sometimes lifting the heels like that will allow a slightly deeper back bend to build. So on this last round, go ahead and leave your heels down the whole time unless that was useful, unless you like lifting the heels up to try to open and safely elevate the hips a little bit more. My cue will be to leave the feet on the floor. In fact, press the feet on the floor. Lift the hips up. Give that wiggle of your shoulders. Find something to do with your hands, even if it's just pressing down towards the floor. And then see if you can open the heart away from your hips, your legs up into your hips, your knees forward. One more breath in. And then release the shoulders. Take the hips down. Step the feet wider than your hips. Then let the knees go against each other. One more breath. And scooch the feet back towards each other. Take your right leg and hold it in. Moving the leg around a little bit. Always seeking most space and softness in the joint. And then taking your hands and holding the back of your thigh, so around your hamstring. Just start to play with straightening and bending that leg. The closer the thigh is to you, the harder it's going to be to straighten your leg. Just kind of being aware of that. I've got a pretty steady motion going on, just trying to find, like, where have I gotten to with this practice today? How is my leg feeling today? And the next time you extend it, hang out there for a moment. Notice if any tension or lift has come into your hip, and instead try to relax that hip down, just slowly working through these sensations. Breathing in, breathing out. And then relax that right leg.
Your left foot, you're going to extend it further away from you. Maybe your leg gets really, really straight. Maybe it doesn't. It does not have to. If having it fully straight is no good, you're going to bend it a little bit more. And then take that right leg and extend and bend it again, just slowly working through that space. It's going to be different. How is it different? See if you can extend the leg for one full round of breath. And then bend your knee and just let that thigh fall towards the side of your chest. Deep breath in and out. And then draw the left leg in, set the right foot down, and take your left leg in, giving it a little squeeze, a little movement around in the hip socket, working in both directions. Then holding onto the hamstring, so behind your leg, as you work on gently, slowly exploring the extension of your leg, making it a little bit straighter, and bending, seeing how this feels, how close you can or should get your leg to your body. Maybe you shouldn't bring it as close as you can. When you find a full extension of the leg, one that your body is willing to breathe through, make sure that it's not something that your hip has to lift up to get you into. Relax the hip down. It may not go all the way down, but make sure that it knows that it has that capacity, that freedom. Finish your exhale. Soften the bend of the knee. And let that right leg go out further away from you. It does not have to be straight, just a little bit more open at least. And then finding again that bending and straightening of the leg, feeling the change between those two shapes. Next time you extend the leg, stay there for a full breath in, full breath out. Bending the knee. Go ahead and relax that leg in towards your chest, towards that side of your chest. That slightly outer space where there's a little bit more room, just not coming right into the middle of your chest where we tend to get blocked. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. And then releasing the grip on that leg. Go ahead and set the soles of both feet down. And open your arms. Let both of your knees go over towards the right, finding a twist. They can be really close to you or not so close. Choosing your own level of rotation. Looking upwards or to the left as you soften your belly. Just letting your belly ring out, letting the breath soften. Inhaling here, exhaling here, and then moving towards the other side, finding a similar shape in the other rotation. Relaxing your right shoulder when you get there. Being soft with your breath. One more round of breath. And then coming back to the center, bringing your knees in, taking happy baby, holding the backs of your legs or holding onto your feet. If there's anything else that your body would like before you find your final rest, going there, sane and happy baby as long as you do like, and then working towards your Shavasana. Having legs bent or legs straighter, just choosing whatever feels more nourishing to your body right now. Trust your judgment. Start to come back to your body and back to your breath. Following any intuition you have for small movements or gestures that will help you to wake up. And then when you're ready, bending your knees, rolling over to one side and offering gratitude for this practice. Gratitude for showing up and having the opportunity to still share this time together. When you're ready and you come to a comfortable seat, you might be able to bring your hands to your heart. Maya Angelou said that I don't trust people who don't love themselves and tell me I love you. We can never overestimate the relationship between self-trust and trusting others. With all things, it starts within, it starts with us. And seal our practice with one Om. Deep breath in. Bowing down to the love and light that resides within each and every one of us. Namaste.
Have a good week, April.
Thank you, Sylvia. Bye, everyone. Let me know if you have questions about anything.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Melinda.
You.
Have
This
a
is
good
such a
week.
gift. Thank you very much, April.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I think you're all a gift. Thank you for still wanting to hang out with me.
Oh, absolutely.
You're the cool kid.
You guys are cool. You're the best thing about my Monday every week.
Oh, yay. Take care.
Bye-bye.